I came home after paying my sister's tuition, only to find my room empty and my mother saying, "Your role is done. Get out." I was blindsided. Welcome to my YouTube channel where I share real stories inspired by popular Reddit topics about family, friendship, and life's ups and downs. Today's story is about someone facing a heartbreaking betrayal within their own family, a situation that might hit close to home for many of us. Have you ever experienced or felt empathy for something like this? Stick around and watch till the end to find out how our main character fought back and reclaimed her life. If you enjoy the story, don't forget to subscribe. Your support motivates me to bring you more meaningful stories every week.
You ever get that feeling where you're grinding so hard for everyone else, but the moment you stop, suddenly you're invisible? That's exactly where I found myself last fall. My name's Harper. I'm a data analyst living in Seattle, working in tech, probably like a million others trying to make a decent living in this overpriced city. But unlike most, my life's been less about climbing ladders and more about holding my family's whole world together. 5 years ago, my dad passed away suddenly. Heart attack. One day he was here, the next he wasn't. My mom, Grace, was shattered. My younger sister, Juno, was only 14. At 28, I suddenly became the adult in the house, the one expected to pay the bills, be the emotional rock, and somehow keep us all afloat. I worked long hours, took extra shifts, also Juno could have what she needed. Tuition, books, therapy sessions. The little things Grace couldn't afford because she was barely working part-time at the local coffee shop. I took pride in it. I told myself I was doing what a good big sister should. Sacrificing my social life, my hobbies, even my own dreams, to keep my family's foundation strong. But the truth? It felt like I was running on fumes. Every paycheck I funneled straight to the house. Every late night, I answered Juno's panicked calls about school. I didn't complain because family comes first, right? Then came last September, the month I paid the last tuition installment for Juno's first year at university. Over $5,000 that I'd scraped, saved, and sacrificed for. I thought it'd be a moment to breathe. Maybe a quiet thank you from Grace or a smile from Juno. Instead, what greeted me that night was a cold, empty house. My room? Gone. That night, when I first stepped inside the door, the silence hit me like a cold slap. I wasn't expecting a party or a fight, but what I walked into was worse, an empty room. The kind of empty that hollows you out. The kind of empty that screams, you don't belong here anymore. I'd lived in that room since I was 16. It was my refuge from all the chaos outside, paint peeling a little on the windowsill, the crooked posters taped on the walls, the little desk where I stayed up late running numbers, trying to make sense of budgets, bills, and the weight of a family suddenly broken. That room was the only place I ever felt like me. And now, every bit of it was gone. My bed gone. My bookshelves empty. My clothes nowhere. The space was stripped clean, wiped of any memory of me. I stood frozen in the doorway, eyes darting around, trying to process the betrayal. Mom? My voice was barely a whisper, cracking like brittle glass. Grace didn't even look at me. Her eyes were glued to the TV screen, the glow reflecting on her tired face. "We're making room for Mark," she said flatly, no emotion behind it. Mark, the man who had wormed his way into our lives over the last year, slowly but surely replacing my father in every way except the one that mattered. The one thing I never wanted, family. I wanted to scream, to argue, to demand answers. But all I could do was swallow hard and nod. "We need the space," Grace added. "Your room is their bedroom now." I swallowed again, fighting tears. What about me? Where am I supposed to sleep? Her smile was sharp, almost mocking. "Your role is done, Harper. Time to move on." That phrase, "your role is done," replayed in my head like a broken record. I wanted to say, what role? The one where I worked 2 jobs and cried myself to sleep? The one where I put my dreams on hold so my little sister could chase hers? The one where I was supposed to be the glue holding us together, only to be discarded like garbage? But the words stuck in my throat. Instead, I packed a bag with shaky hands, grabbing the few things I could carry: a photo of Dad, my laptop, a worn-out jacket, and a notebook filled with calculations and reminders. As I walked out the door, the weight of it all crushed me. The house I grew up in, the family I gave my life for, they didn't want me anymore. That night, I stayed at a friend's place. We didn't talk much about it. I didn't know how to explain that my own family had kicked me out. The next morning, I called Juno. She sounded scared and confused. "Harper, I'm sorry. I never thought Mom would do this." "Me neither." Juno was only 19 now, a freshman at university, still figuring out her place in the world. She had always been the baby of the family, the one Mom doted on, wrapped in cotton wool, while I was expected to carry all the weight. The cold truth was that Grace didn't just want Mark in the house, she wanted me gone. I felt like I was drowning in disbelief and anger. I thought about all the times I'd stayed up late paying bills, about every dollar sent to pay Juno's tuition, about every moment I'd sacrificed to keep our family afloat. And for what? To be shoved out like a stranger. The following days were a blur of uncertainty and raw emotions. I needed answers, but more than that, I needed a plan. With Juno's encouragement, I reached out to my grandparents, Dad's parents, George and Helen. We hadn't seen them in years. Life got complicated after Dad died, and Mom didn't want much to do with them. But now, with the home I'd known no longer mine, they were the only people who felt like family. Driving up to their house in the suburbs, my heart pounded. The old place smelled like warmth and nostalgia, the scent of cinnamon, freshly brewed coffee, and polished wood. Helen was waiting at the door, her arms open wide, ready to catch us if we fell. We sat at their kitchen table, cups of tea warming our hands. I told them everything. The eviction, Grace's cold words, the empty room, the stolen sense of home. Helen's face tightened. "We'll figure this out." "You're not alone." Then, George pulled out a dusty folder from the cupboard. "Look what we found," he said. Inside were papers, legal documents about Dad's estate. One sheet caught my eye, an inheritance waiver. My name was on it. Juno's, too. But we never signed it. The signatures looked familiar, but wrong. Fake. I felt bile rise in my throat. How could Grace do this? How could she erase us from Dad's legacy, steal from us without a word? We confronted George and Helen. They told us Grace had convinced them that we gave up our rights. "We never did," I said, voice shaking. "We didn't even know about these papers." Helen nodded slowly, eyes heavy with sorrow. "We wanted to believe the best. But this," she shook her head. "This is wrong." Juno's usually soft voice turned hard. She pushed us aside and took everything. That night I lay awake, thoughts swirling. I thought about the years I worked myself to the bone. I thought about Dad, how proud he'd been, how much he'd wanted us to succeed together. And now it felt like that dream was stolen. I realized something crucial. Blood doesn't always guarantee loyalty. Family isn't just about shared DNA. It's about trust, respect, and love. And if those things are broken, what do you really have? With Juno by my side, I made a decision. We were going to fight back. Not just for the money, but for our dignity. For Dad's memory. For the sister who deserved more than to be overshadowed. For me. The courtroom was colder than I expected, not just physically, but emotionally. There was a weight in the air, thick and heavy, that pressed down on me the moment I stepped inside. My palms were sweaty, my heart pounding. This wasn't some abstract battle. This was my life, my future, my family's legacy. Grace sat across from me, her face carefully composed, but there was something in her eyes, a flicker of uncertainty, maybe guilt, that told me this fight was real for her too. Or at least, that she knew the stakes. Rachel, my lawyer, was calm and collected, but I could see the fire burning behind her eyes as she presented our case. She laid out the evidence piece by piece, the forged inheritance waiver, expert handwriting analysis that confirmed the signatures weren't ours, bank statements showing where the money had gone, and text messages from Mark boasting about handling business. Every bit of proof chipped away at the illusion Grace had built. When it was my turn, I spoke with a voice steadier than I felt. I told the story of the last 5 years, how I worked double shifts to pay Juno's tuition, how I held the family together when everything else seemed to be falling apart, how I was kicked out of the home I'd known since childhood with nothing but a suitcase and shattered trust. Juno followed, her voice shaking at first, but growing stronger as she recounted her own confusion and pain, how she never consented to give up her rights, how she always depended on me and now felt the weight of that responsibility shifting. Grace didn't defend herself much. When she did, she blamed grief and confusion, saying she had to act quickly to secure the family's future with Mark. But it was clear the judge wasn't buying it. Days passed like a haze. The judge finally ruled in our favor. The estate was restored to me and Juno. Grace was ordered to repay what she'd wrongfully taken, and the forged documents were invalidated. Relief and sorrow washed over me in equal measure. The victory was a validation, but it also marked the fracture, the loss of what had been a family. The courtroom exit was quiet. No cheers, no tears. Just a steady resolve settling in my chest. Back at the apartment, with Juno laughing softly over a cup of coffee, I finally allowed myself to breathe. Our new place was modest. Bare walls, a thrift store couch, hand-me-down dishes, but it was ours. It was safe. It was a blank slate. For the first time in years, I wasn't just Harper, the caretaker. I was Harper, the woman reclaiming her story. Work became different. I poured myself into projects not because I had to, but because I wanted to, because I was building a future that belonged to me, not just sustaining one that was crumbling. School returned to my radar. Online courses in business management and personal finance, skills I'd put off for years. I dreamed again. Juno thrived. University challenges, part-time shifts at the bookstore, newfound independence. She blossomed before my eyes. The sister who once needed protection was now a partner in this journey. Our grandparents were the heartbeats in this new chapter. Helen's warm hugs and George's quiet wisdom grounded us. They reminded me that family isn't just blood, it's love, support, and presence. Grace became a distant memory, a chapter closed with bittersweet acceptance. Sometimes I wondered about her, but mostly I chose peace over resentment. I learned that walking away from toxic ties wasn't betrayal. It was survival. It was self-love. Now, as I sit by my apartment window, watching the Seattle skyline glow under the twilight, I feel a calm I never thought possible. Juno's asleep in the next room, her dreams full of hope and possibility. And I, finally, have reclaimed my life. I'm not just Harper the sister or the daughter. I'm Harper the survivor, the fighter, the woman who refused to be invisible. And this story? It's only just beginning. If you've ever felt invisible in your own family, or like your sacrifices go unseen, know you're not alone. Sometimes, the hardest thing to do is walk away, but sometimes it's the only way to reclaim your life. This story isn't just mine. It's for anyone who's ever had to choose themselves in a world that expects them to always give.
What did this story make you feel or think? I'd love to hear your thoughts, reflections, or even your tough questions down in the comments. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe so you won't miss the next chapter of this journey. Thanks for staying with me until the very end. Your time and attention truly mean the world.